Well, I'm Jennifer Scott, and from Dundee, born and brought up in Dundee, but had visits up to Perth to see the Soutars. The Soutars were cousins, some way related to my mother, and Evelyn, indeed, was my mother's cousin. She'd been born in Australia because 3 of the aunts went out to Australia and had large families. And Evelyn's mother became a widow, had a large family. She was the baby of the family and was brought home to be adopted by the Soutar family and very much loved and brought up in Perth. But I've lost touch with that family. I don't know where they are, except that they're probably in Australia.
It's quite a big family overall.
I only met, in my memory, Evelyn's after she was married and came to visit us in Scarborough one day. And with her she had a little baby in a crib, which I was left to look after. And but she had a family of 3 or 4, and they're out in Australia. And I would have to ask my cousin what the name was. I don't know.
Yes. What are your first memories of coming here to the Soutar house in Perth?
First memories are being welcomed certainly at the door and come in, and yes, it was a very lovely welcome and very pleased to see my mother. I know that because they seemed to be very friendly with my granny, who was she died quite young too, but I remember her vaguely. And my grandmother and Mrs. Soutar were good pals, and there had always been a close link somehow or other. I would have to work it out.
At that age, you wouldn't have been aware of exactly who was who and what.
No, I came to Perth to see lots of cousins.
It would just be another one of the visits.
And one, yes, I came to realise that coming up to Perth meant somebody had probably been ill and we were up to see them, because they would then disappear and not be on the visiting agenda.
I see.
But we went to cousins in Cairn Green, and my grandfather had been born in Cairn Green, so there were a lot of people that would know and they would come up.
But you remember coming here in all of those other visits.
So clearly. I remember going to Cairn Green too, and just the same sort of welcome, because you always had your tea and your scones and whatever.
Oh, fabulous!
Yes.
I can imagine that being very important at that age.
Very important, and not as important as we were going to get a shilling or something out of our pocket before we left. But here, yes, we normally got a penny or whatever it was, a shilling probably. Yes, which I thought was wonderful. Yeah,
and a cup of tea.
Well, I wouldn't be drinking the tea, I don't suppose, but I would like the cakes.
Do you remember being brought in to see?
Oh yes, I do. And I remember standing at the bed and how high the bed appeared to be, and how I was up on the bed with. Well, I do remember that, sitting there.
Now you would have been about 2 or 3 years old.
Well, I was almost 3. But when he died, I was always 3 when he died.
So you'd have been.
By the time he died, I was 3.
Perhaps.
Yes, by the time he died, because it was later on in the year. So I'd be 3. And I do remember being ushered in here, because everything had been left as it had been, and the bed was still there.
Oh, after he'd died.
Yes.
Right. Do you remember the character of William Soutar? The people have talked about the shock of black hair, and it's quite a
I
startling
think my
sight.
mother thought he was really quite a bit of a dandy, I suppose, dressed up with his bow tie and his and a good-looking chap. And yes, and I think he must have been somebody of quite a different character, really, and was obviously very bright.
You mentioned earlier that your mother's bridesmaid was Evelyn. By the time you came along, Evelyn, would she have been here?
I think she would have been here.
Do you remember her?
She married, and when I was 5, she had been married, because I was 5 when I was in Scarborough, and she paid that visit. And she was quite wild, I think, and got her own way. Mum said she was very, very spoilt, and she used to do naughty things like.
Oh really?
I think
quite feisty, was she?
Yes, I think so. Yes, and I think she and Willie, I think he adored having her around here. Yes.
A lively spirit.
Yes, and there's last night I was looking at one of these books and looking at the dates as to when he died, and there's in one of them there's the day after I had visited. He said something about the children, and I thought, I wonder if that's because I was there.
Yes, possibly.
And I don't know, but
I think there'd been a number of visitors that were brought. A lot of visiting.
Oh, they had a lot of visiting, and he writes quite, when he was pleased to see people and when he wasn't pleased to see people.
Yes, yeah.
Within the books, you get the idea that he must have got very tired of all these visitors that had come. But that's what happened in these days.
I was going to say, I don't think that was just because it was him and he was ill. I think that's what people did. People visited.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It was
But he must have felt so frustrated, because he would have been. Yeah. He could have done all sorts of things if he'd been well enough to do it.
You said that you went here. Were brought here to visit after William Soutar died. So you must have got to know his parents, because that would have been when you were a bit older. Yes,
well, we'd come in and sit down and be obviously been told to behave, and I think we would have done so. But it was a place you looked forward to coming. There were some places that you didn't want to go. But
that's interesting, because you described this room as being kept almost. You wonder if it was a sad house or a sort of mausoleum.
No, I think they were both very religious. And, the church meant a lot to them. And, so, not that I would know that, but I think there was quite a bond between it was my grandfather's side that were related to Mrs. Soutar, and but Evelyn was a cousin on my grandmother's side.
Right.
It was a complicated relationship.
Yes.
So
I think that sounds like something you would need one of these maps.
Yes, you would have to put it down and see who it was. Yeah. But it's. But I think. Well. It seemed to be quite a close family when I think back of all the aunts and cousins and things that they had. And my mother was one of 5, and she had lots and lots of cousins. And
you said that you had been here for the unveiling of the plaque.
Yes.
What do you remember about that day?
Well, it was obviously very special. Felt probably quite proud to be here for some reason or other, and it was interesting. And you'd heard of McDermott and people like that, but they were all here, and they were all, to me, old men.
Yes.
Even at 18.
But it was old men, but it wasn't family. This wasn't.
I don't remember. Don't remember so much about that, and there would be too much going on, I suppose. But it was, they unveiled the plaque, and not much more really. I don't remember any feast then or anything. But there were people in the house, and yes.
But you remember it as a day of
it was a day
excitement.
to go out. It must have been a day to go out, yes.
And the photographs, everyone is dressed up and in their...
Oh, it was quite... Oh, yes, quite. You would always be dressed up. You'd be dressed up if you were coming here anyway. But
oh, really? Really?
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, it was a day out. Go and see Auntie Maggie or cousins, somebody. And my mother, well, she wouldn't have gone downtown or shopping without being dressed up. People did dress up, yes.
Very much more formal. Ladies would have a certain expectation about makeup and certain clothes.
I don't know that makeup was a problem. Well, I probably wasn't at all interested in that, so I don't remember anything like that. But you never saw any of your friends downtown not being dressed up. Not really dressed up, but suits and hats and coats and and their shopping bags.
That's something I always notice in the photographs. The hats.
Yes,
people are.
My mother would be horrified. You never went to church without a hat.
How aware were you that the poetry is so widely recognised nationally? That this wasn't just a poet in the family.
Widely recognised. It is recognised by people who are interested in poetry and things like that. But
yes.
Normal people.
It's not quite like Burns.
Not like Burns at all.
But within poetry,
in
poetry
Perth,
world,
Perth too, probably recognised more than anywhere else. And I wish it was more recognised. I wish it had been more recognised. But over time it probably is, and people are paying more and more attention to poetry. And it gets much more press than it used to get.
Yes.
People are more aware of it. I've always liked poetry, I don't know why. But
you personally responded to the poetry and appreciated it.
Oh yes,
not just because it was a family member.
A gem, and interested too in the words, and sitting reading out to myself the Scots language which was used.
Yes,
but I don't remember any of that. I don't think I was always made to speak as well as I could,
The poetry, some of it's in English and some is in Scots, and I just wondered if you preferred one or other, or if you responded differently to the English or the Scots poems.
No, I think just on the particular poem and what it was saying.
And I believe a lot of the words that he used in the Scots poetry were, well, somewhat unfamiliar to some people. Perhaps he'd been delving into dictionaries and...
Oh no, I think he would know these probably. And probably, yes, he wouldn't not be doing research on things that he was interested in either. And it was a language that was spoken. And my grandmother was from Angus, so I don't really remember anything. She had such a lovely soft voice. And when I went to New Zealand, quite recently really, about 10 years ago, my second cousins in New Zealand knew words that I think, oh, that's Granny's. So the old Scots language and the use of it died out very quickly, I think. Probably something to do with the war.
Mm-hmm. You don't remember people speaking Scots language when you came to visit here, for instance?
No, they'd be speaking in English. I don't know, probably with some Scottish words in amongst the conversation, because there always was. My father-in-law had a great collection of Scottish words, I believe, and he used them all the time. But
and what about in Dundee and
that was
with
in
your
Dundee.
friends?
That was
If you were, out in the street, would there have been Scots words?
Not me. Not for me.
No,
nor my friends. No, nor my friends.
Right. I love this book that you have that you had been given. The Seeds in the Wind, and it's got. There we are.
It's got Jim, Jean and Jennifer with best wishes from Willie on the 30th of 7th 43, and it's lovely. And my favourite poem out of here is, I don't need to look for it, it's Coorie in the corner, sitting a lane, one the Nechtwin's chapping on the winnock pane, Coorie in the corner, dinna greet a va, it's just a wee bit golch running up the wa.